Hi everyone, I've got a cute robin bird in a snowstorm for you today. This is off one of my best-selling cards, and I shall pop a photograph of the drawing up nice and large so you can copy that, but it's quite a simple robin and you've even only got one leg because it's a side view there. So I've got a selection of colours. I'm on a Saunders Waterford block. It's a rough paper, £140. So I'm going to come on with some water. I'll talk you through the colours as I go. I'm going to do a bit of a background first of all. I'm going to come round the robin. And I want plenty of water. I'm going to use indigo into the background and a lot of salt to create this snowstorm effect. I want you to take your time getting plenty of water on to give you time to get the colour on. So this is a squirrel mop brush and I've actually got quite a big size. This is a 12 by 16 inch pad. So I'm avoiding the snow at the bottom, I'm avoiding the robin, just coming down to eye level to check that I've got water pretty much everywhere. Then I have some indigo in my palette here. So a nice big blob with half a teaspoon of water. I need lots and lots of paint for this. Going to give it a really good mix. Then I'm going to start to come in. So indigo is a shooty pigment. As you can see already, it's shooting. That's really nice. I want you to go nice and dark. I've got loads of water on this. If you can leave indigo to dry naturally, you'll get a much nicer finish. With a hairdryer, it tends to dull the colour. So I've put plenty of water on because I want it to be a swirling snowstorm. Coming round the robin. So this is all with a round number 10. See, I'm coming through this paint really quickly. It's because I've got such a big sheet of paper. But it will have a lot of impact being a bigger sheet of paper. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of a leg. It wouldn't be the end of the world if I went over the leg because I could lift it out later anyway. Come round the beak. Again, not the end of the world if you come over the beak, but if you can avoid it, the better it is. I've got odd little bits of white which I actually want to leave because it adds to the snowstorm effect. So it's coming around the tail, and around the wing. I'm going to just drop down to a number 6 just for these final little bits because I'm coming in to create a little bit of a line for the feathering, and then I want to get a really nice edge on the leg. All this extra water's given me plenty of time just checking my shape. Now with the salt, you're coming on, it's normal table salt that I'm using. In fact, I've got the salt pot, and you're going to create a snowstorm effect. So I've got some salt here. Where it's wetter, you want it to pull more. So that's within the centre. So I'm going to start to take some salt on. Basically the salt goes everywhere, so this is really quite random, but where it's drier you should get less of a pull from the salt. It's something that you have to watch. I'm sprinkling quite high, sprinkling around those whiter areas. Salt is random, so every single picture will be different. Then I just need to wait and watch. So I'm going to keep the salt in my hand, I'm going to watch it settle. If I need to apply any more as it starts to sink in, you can already see little speckles happening. The beauty with Indigo is it really does pull the paint out, and you should get that snowstorm effect. So I'll come back in a little while. Okay, so it's now been about a minute and a half, and you can see what's starting to happen. So these bits that are drying quicker are starting to settle and pull out really well. There's some bits around here as well. It's pulled out really quite nicely around that white patch. I've taken a little bit extra in around that white patch, and I'm watching this central area, because this central area I want it to still be quite wet, and it will be the last part that starts to dry, and you can see already that you're getting that snowstorm swirly effect just starting here. So it's just a case of watching it and not moving away. And I know it can be a bit boring watching paint dry, but if you have a small opportunity that as this is drying, if it doesn't look like it's pulling enough salt and pulling enough colour out, that you can take a little bit more. As the sheen starts to go in that central area, you'll be able to work out whether you can take a little bit more salt on if you actually need it. You might not actually need it. I can see it's pulling large bits at the minute. So I shall come back to you again. Okay, so I actually don't think I need any more. I'm just watching it. That central area is still fairly wet, but as it's coming inwards and drying and settling, it's pulling and giving that swirling effect, which is what I want. So I shall come back to you when this is dry and we'll carry on. So here we go. So that's nicely dry, and we've got a really magnificent swirly snowstorm background happening here. So I'm going to look at the snow below. Just take a little bit of water on with my round number 10. It doesn't have to be everywhere. I'm going to lower my brush up and come back into that indigo. I'm just going to create a little bit of shadow in there. So I need a little bit under the foot and a little bit here and there. So I don't want too much. What I've taken on, if I get a clean piece of kitchen towel, for this snow effect, clean piece of kitchen towel, I'm just going to randomly dab a little bit off, just so that it's not flat in colour and you've got undulation there. So it really is just a little bit of snow shadow. Okay, so I can start to come onto the body of the robin now. I'm going to avoid the eye. I'm going to get a little bit of a base on. I'm going to just come down under this wing. So I'm going to work really in this front section. I'm going to take it section by section. So I've got dabs in my palette now. So this is a little bit of cadmium orange. It's going to come in first of all. Now I've wet further than this cadmium orange needs to go so that it starts to soften in. It's a little trick, but you don't have to do the whole robin all together to get that softening in effect. So it's got somewhere to flow. So that's the cadmium orange. Rinse my brush off. This is round number 6. And then I'm going to come in. This is cadmium red. A nice festive robin. It's a well-fed robin, this one. I'm coming in, I'm following the line of the robin, but I'm going to leave tiny little bits of orange showing. So don't eliminate all of the orange. It's quite nice to see little bits there. Rinse my brush out. I've got a dab of burnt sienna here. I'm just going to take a few little bits of burnt sienna through. This is wet at the bottom. I'm going to take a tiny bit of the indigo in. Just bring that through a little bit. And then I've got a mix here. This is cobalt blue and burnt sienna. So this is making a really nice neutral grey. You've got to be careful with the indigo because the indigo is quite grey, but it will go green against the reds. So it's a different type of blue. So I only wanted a hint in there. I'm coming in underneath the wing with a little bit of this grey, which is cobalt blue and burnt sienna. Let's take a little bit more through. Try not to eliminate, again, all of the white. You want to keep a little bit of white there. Okay, I'm going to dry that off. Okay, so that's looking really nice, and what we're going to do now is just come into the top of the robin. So I'm taking the water on with my round number 6. I'm coming up to the wing and up to the top of the neck. I've got a little bit of water there. I'm going to load my brush up with water, then I'm going to come in with the burnt sienna. So you want a nice shape on the wing. Following the feathers, coming down. Give my brush a little bit of a rinse. And I'm coming to the cobalt blue and burnt sienna mix. This is really quite thick, so I need this to be nice and dark. I'm just going to bring a little bit in within the tail, a little bit around the wing. Giving a really nice shadowed effect. I've missed a little bit of water here, so I'm just going to soften that in there. So I don't want that to be too hard. There's a little bit of water going back in. And then I just need to wait. I'm going to soften that top bit in as well. And I'm waiting for this the sheen to go off because I want to take a little bit more of the neat burnt sienna in. So I'm getting that onto my brush ready. It's very little water and I'm just waiting. So if I bring a little bit in here, look, we'll see it settle. The sheen's gone on the tail. It's not gone up here yet. And this is just giving a thicker bit of burnt sienna. So this is neat burnt sienna going on, and it's creating thicker flecks and a bit of texture. And it can come through that grey as well. You bring a bit extra into the tail. I'm going to come on to the leg. This is just burnt sienna and a steady hand. So I've taken a tiny bit of water on, just because I want this to flow a little bit. I'm going to follow the line down. You can use a number 6, you can use a rigger, you could use a detailer brush if you needed to. So use whichever brush you feel comfortable with. I've got a good point on this number 6, so it's just enough for me to do that. So I'm going to dry this off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I've got a detailer brush, so this is round number 2, and I'm going to come into the eye now. So this is on to dry, and I'm going to take a little bit of cadmium red first into there, and then I have got some Payne's grey. Payne's grey or lamp black would work nicely. I'm just going to paint in the shape of the eye. Now you really need to take your time here. You need a tiny highlight. And then the robin starts to come to life. So I'm going to take some of this out. What you should start to see is that cadmium red glow. I don't know if you'll see it on camera, but we're just not going to have a full eye that's totally grey. It's really nice to have that little bit of colour in. So if I take a little bit more out, I can see the red, but I'm going to pop a little bit more red in so you can start to see that. If I just if I come in, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. You can see that little bit of a glow in the eye. If I get a damp, clean brush, I can just touch into either edge. That's gone a bit far, so that's just a damp, clean brush taking it off, and it's just giving it a surface for that eye to sit into. Okay, and then we're going to come on to the beak with the detailer. So I'm going to do a line down the centre. What's important is you get that diamond shape on the beak. The diamond shape there, you can leave a tiny little bit of light and a tiny bit of light here. There we go. So we've got a really nice sharp beak there. Again, I've rinsed the brush out. I'm just touching in with a damp brush, taking that in a little bit further so it starts to connect. If I take my round number 6, load it with water, and I'm dipping into the cadmium red, I'm going to now bold this up a little bit. So I'm stroking downwards as if I was following the line of the feathers. I'm not going to come all the way to the edge. I want to keep bits softer, but I want a little bit more power in with the colour. So this is layering to bring this all together. And this can create like a little bit of shadow as well. A little bit of light. I'm just coming up to that edge. If I wet my brush, it's rinsed off. I've got a little bit of water. I've dabbed off a little bit. I'm just going to touch in just on that edge, just to soften that in a little bit, so that it's not all hard. Hard and soft edges work much better. I'm also going to do the same with a little bit of the grey. So I'm going to bring a bit more shadow under the wing and a little bit more definition just into this lighter area. So I'm just touching with a brush in a few places. I'll rinse the brush, clean water, dab it off a little bit. Then I'm just going to touch in and just soften that in a few places. Okay, so I'll dry that off. Okay, so with my round number 10, I'm going to wet the final area, which is to come in and do the central wing. So this is the burnt sienna again. And we're stroking down the wing in the direction the feathers would go. You can leave odd little bits of white, it works quite nicely on this section. And then we're coming right the way up to that edge. And we go a little bit thicker here. So you've got this softness of light there. And with some thicker burnt sienna, as it starts to settle, we can come through. Can pick up a little bit of the grey. Just stroke that through in places. Make it a bit darker towards the top. Take a tiny bit of the indigo into this section there as well. That little bit of indigo that we're popping in is just connecting all of the bird together with the background. And then I can just bring in a few little bit more bits of stronger burnt sienna. Start to work nicely and softly together. Okay, I'll dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry, and I've got my brush loaded with some burnt sienna. And I can just come in and create some darker patches. Again, I am following the line of the feathers. Just vary the pressure of the brush, and you're just going to do a few strokes. So this is really effective layering to build up a really nice effect. Very simple. With a clean damp brush, just touching in places so it's not all hard again. Hard and soft edges work. Just gonna touch in just at this top edge here as well. I'm going to pop a little bit more indigo just under where the bird's claw is, just so I've got a little bit more, background there. Can have a little bit, it's going to raise it off the snow a little bit and work much better. I can also then take a little bit more shadow just underneath there so it sits nicely onto the snow. And the last thing I want to do is really to just bring in a few little bits of the indigo. So I'm working from the edge of the bird, just bringing in a few little bits. Now what this is going to do is connect it all together. It can sometimes feel a little bit like you've cut out and stuck the bird on, and this is just going to soften this little bit in. So just taking those few bits, it blends it through. So that was a wet brush that I've taken just over those. I'll take a little bit in here and a little bit towards the back of the neck, and then just a little bit in here, I think. It'll also get rid of that little white patch. So again, a damp brush, and it's just blending those through. It's just stopping it looking so cut out. It's got some bits connecting it within now. Then I've got something called Iridescent medium here. I'll pop a link in the description. And this just gives a tiny little bit of sparkle. So with a clean brush, I can come in and put a little bit of sparkle onto the snow. So it's really nice and effective. It's subtle. You can take a little bit of sparkle onto the robin's red breast. You can even take a little bit of sparkle onto the top of his beak. So it's just really pretty and effective. I've got it in an old bottle there because I struggle with the childproof cap. So I'm going to take a little bit onto the wing as well, just to give a little bit of sparkle on the wing. Makes it nice and festive. And there we go. So that's all finished. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share, and I shall see you again shortly. So there we go, it's all finished. I popped a mount on so you can see the full effect. I hope you've enjoyed it. Lots of different techniques in there. Please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop another video for you here and a playlist up here, and I'll see you next time.